Everywhere I ride, you create a little gang. You attract young boys on bikes. They surround you. They call out to you. Some throw rocks. Some aim them low, so it's just to get your attention. Some aim at you. Most of them want to just ride bikes with you. What I found was that you attract more attention, but you're attracting the good kind of attention. You're attracting camaraderie. You're attracting joy. The problem for me was every single ride realizing that girls were unable to do this. This was the view of the girls. They're watching me ride, they're watching the joy, they're watching the boys ride, and they're not allowed. And it's heartbreaking, and it's unfair. What I started to look at was the questions that would come up is, does it even matter whether girls ride bikes? You know, so girls can't ride, aren't there bigger issues? The bike was a key component of our own women's rights movement in the US. And I started digging back into our own history of the suffragettes and what was the reaction when US women, when American women started riding bikes. You know, Susan B. Anthony, one of the voices of that time, the fact that she says that it was a tool that has done more for emancipating women than anything else in the world, I mean, that's astounding, much like the young women in Afghanistan that are now riding bikes. I found out that there was a men's national cycling team. No one I knew had ever heard of such a thing. Men and boys ride everywhere. You see them everywhere across the streets. It's the most common mode of transportation, but never girls. But they're never doing it for sport. Cycling is not an Afghan sport. Football and cricket are the Afghan sports. And so I asked to meet this young man. It turns out he was a waiter at a cafe that I had gone to before. And then the really fascinating thing was, he found out that I rode bikes and invited me to come for a ride with the team. Of course, I immediately say yes, although I'm a little nervous about riding on the Afghan highways. Trucking, it's a trucking route. You've got the big Pakistani jingle trucks blowing by. There's no rules of the road. Most Afghans have not taken a driver's license test. And we meet at this petrol station. As we're all gathering, you see boys starting to come from different directions. The coach arrived in his car, and he's got his assistant with him, a young woman, beautiful, strong features. She looks tough, and he's furious. Why has nobody told me that there's a foreign woman coming to ride with the men's team? It's putting her at risk, it's putting you at risk. And he's like in my face, yelling at me. And once he gets it out of his system, because that's very kind of Afghan to just get it out, then he shakes my hand and says, welcome. Like, okay, why are you here? And I said, well, I ride bikes. I used to be a sports trainer in a prior life, and I'm a mountain biker. And the boys invited me to come and ride with them. I didn't mean any offense. They didn't tell me anything about you. And who is this woman with you? And he says, well, this is Miriam. She's my assistant, but she's also on the Afghan national women's team. I'm like, women's team? How did this come to be? I've been looking for women for 3 years. I've never met one family that would allow their girl to ride a bike, or that any girl I've ever met or woman who has ridden a bike. And he said that when he started the men's team, which was pre-Taliban time, and then had to stop because of the Taliban time, he had wanted to start a girls' team. He didn't see any reason not to, and he started with his own daughters. As is always the case, it's that family connection. He wanted his girls to experience the joy of riding. I asked if I could meet the team. Of course, he allowed, and I met with the girls and said, how can I help? I mean, we're kind of coming full circle in my journey here. Like, how do I help support these young women? This is exactly what I had always hoped, was that we'd find a way that we could normalize bikes so that we could get girls' bikes to get to schools, and so that we could reduce the gender violence. So that when girls are walking the gauntlet in an urban environment where they're getting acid thrown at them, where they're kidnapped, where there's rocks thrown, where they're being attacked, we can give them a really simple tool. When they're in rural areas and can't access medical care or can't access a school, they have the ability to travel a greater distance, and we need fewer resources. We don't need as many schools if we can bring more people to them. then we can spend that money on more teachers.